I'm a great tennis player, but I don't do the other stuff. I'm not the most professional guy. I won't train day in, day out. I won't show up every day. So there's a lot of things I need to improve on to get to that level that, Rafa brings, Novak brings, Roger.
You know that moment when someone talks a little too much, when the confidence starts sounding less like belief and more like destiny, and for a second you almost believe them. The cameras are flashing, the crowd is roaring, the predictions are bold. Not one, not two, not three. I'm going to destroy him. They won't even score. And in that moment, it feels inevitable. But sports has this cruel little habit. It listens, it waits, and then it answers back. Because sometimes the louder the promise, the harder the fall. Today, we're diving into the moments when supreme confidence turned into unforgettable humiliation, when swagger met reality, when mind games backfired, when legends, champions, and superstars all learned the same brutal lesson. The game doesn't care what you say. Let's start. 10. Nick Kyrgios. Nick Kyrgios has never been boring, and honestly, tennis kind of needed that. In a sport built on tradition, etiquette, and carefully measured press conferences, Kyrgios walked in like a lightning bolt. He laughed at the media. He mocked opponents mid-match. He made it clear he didn't care about fitting the mold. And when it came to Rafael Nadal, he didn't just want to beat him, he wanted to rattle him. Kyrgios tried everything: sarcasm, mimicking Nadal's routines, jabs at his serious demeanor. He wanted under Nadal's skin so badly you could almost feel it through the screen. It was classic mind game territory, the idea that if you can disrupt the mental side, you level the playing field. But here's the thing about Nadal: he doesn't crack. While Kyrgios was playing to the crowd, Nadal was playing to win. Calm, disciplined, relentless. And when the match ended, the results said everything. The theatrics hadn't mattered. The taunts hadn't mattered. The scoreboard did. What made it hit even harder was what came after. Kyrgios later admitted he had struggled deeply after losing badly to Nadal the year before. Depression, self-doubt. That loss lingered. Suddenly, the jokes and bravado looked less like confidence and more like armor. To his credit, he eventually owned it. He acknowledged there were levels to greatness, levels that Nadal, Djokovic, and Federer had sustained for years. That realization, that's growth. But the lesson was public, and it was painful. Sometimes, swagger is entertaining, but greatness doesn't respond to noise. It responds with results. Number 9. Mario Balotelli. Mario Balotelli was chaos wrapped in talent. There was no denying the ability. In his prime, he could change a game in seconds. Powerful, skilled, fearless. But with Balotelli, you never quite knew what you were going to get. Brilliant goal? Maybe. Bizarre decision? Also very possible. And then came that preseason match with Manchester City against LA Galaxy. Through on goal, clear chance, easy finish. Instead of putting the ball in the net the simple way, Balotelli attempted a flashy backheel trick shot. Casual, almost lazy, like he was bored. The crowd didn't cheer. They stared. He missed. Completely. And before he could even process what happened, manager Roberto Mancini had seen enough. Subbed off immediately. No debate. No second chance. It wasn't just a missed opportunity. It felt disrespectful to the opponent, to the team, to the game itself. Fans were stunned. Teammates were frustrated. And Balotelli later claimed he thought he was offside, that he believed the play had stopped. Almost nobody bought it. That was the story of Balotelli's career in a nutshell. Immense talent, questionable judgment, and moments where ego overpowered discipline. The humiliating part wasn't just the substitution. It was the realization that sometimes being different crosses into being careless. And in professional sports, that line is thin. Balotelli had the tools to dominate for years, but consistency and humility were always the missing pieces. 8. LeBron James. When LeBron James took his talents to Miami, it wasn't subtle, it was a spectacle. The introduction event felt more like a coronation than a roster announcement. And then came the line that would echo for years. Not one, not two, not three, 7 championships. 7. Now confidence, that's expected from a superstar. But publicly promising more titles than Michael Jordan ever won, that's pressure on a completely different level. The Miami Heat became villains overnight. Every arena booed, every loss was magnified, and every finals appearance carried the weight of that prediction. Then came 2014. The San Antonio Spurs didn't just beat Miami, they dismantled them. Clinical ball movement, ruthless execution, no theatrics, just dominance. And suddenly, the bold prophecy felt heavy. LeBron had to stand there and accept it. The Spurs were better. Period. To his credit, he didn't hide. He didn't dodge the moment. He acknowledged the loss, admitted the reality, and moved forward. And yes, he would go on to win more championships later in his career. But that promise? That public overreach? It became a reminder that greatness isn't declared, it's earned, repeatedly. And sometimes the lesson isn't about losing, it's about learning when to let your game speak for you. 7. Tom Brady. It's strange to think of Tom Brady as anything other than calculated and composed. But back in 2007, during the Patriots' near-perfect season, there was a moment where confidence tipped just slightly into arrogance. The New England Patriots were 18-0 heading into Super Bowl X-Flown, undefeated, historic, steamrolling teams. Brady was playing at an absurd level, and the offense looked unstoppable. Then came a bold prediction from Giants receiver Plaxico Burress. He said the Patriots wouldn't score more than 17 points. 17. When Brady was asked about it, he laughed. Not a polite chuckle, a genuine, that's cute kind of laugh. The idea that his offense, that offense, would be limited to 17 points sounded ridiculous. But here's the twist. The Giants' defense showed up. Relentless pressure, tight coverage, controlled chaos. Brady was hit constantly. The rhythm never fully settled. And when the final whistle blew, 17 points. Exactly what Burress predicted. The Patriots lost 17-14. The perfect season was gone. Just like that. The most painful part wasn't just the defeat, it was how perfectly the prediction aged. The laughter beforehand replayed in every highlight reel, every sports debate, every recap. To Brady's credit, he didn't run from it. He faced the media. He called it one of the hardest losses of his career. And considering everything he went on to accomplish, that's saying something. But in that moment, the football world learned something powerful. Confidence can fuel greatness, but dismissing your opponent? That's dangerous, because sometimes the bulletin board material becomes the final score. 6. Brian Bosworth. Brian Bosworth didn't just play football, he performed it. The Boz was larger than life. Wild haircut, bold interviews, self-promotion turned up to maximum. He marketed himself as much as he tackled. And coming out of college, the hype was enormous. He embraced it, fully. And then came 1987, Seattle Seahawks versus Los Angeles Raiders. Bo Jackson. Now, if you know anything about Bo Jackson, you know this wasn't just another running back. He was a physical phenomenon. Speed, power, explosiveness. The kind of athlete who didn't look real. Bosworth, though, he wasn't intimidated. In fact, he publicly called Jackson out, said he'd handle him, contain him, shut him down. Linebackers are supposed to be fearless. That's part of the job. But calling out Bo Jackson? That's a different gamble. During the game, everything unraveled. Jackson ran through him, not around him, through him. There's one particular play that lives forever in NFL history. Jackson lowering his shoulder and flattening Bosworth near the goal line. It wasn't just a touchdown, it was symbolic. The hype met reality, and reality won. Bosworth later admitted he learned something that day. That talk is cheap. That performance is what lasts. The image of him getting trucked became part of his legacy. Not the bravado, not the marketing, not the persona, just that moment. Sometimes, when you build yourself into a myth, the fall feels louder. And Bo Jackson made sure the lesson was unforgettable. 5. Cam Newton. Cam Newton walked into Super Bowl 50 looking like the future of the NFL had already arrived. It wasn't just that he was winning, it was how he was winning. The MVP season, the explosive runs, the no-look throws, the dancing in the end zone. The confidence wasn't subtle, and honestly, it didn't need to be. The Carolina Panthers were 15-1. He smiled through press conferences. He leaned into the spotlight. He made it clear he felt comfortable, ready, in control. But the Super Bowl has a way of stripping everything down to fundamentals. Across the field stood the Denver Broncos, led by a defense that didn't care about MVP trophies or viral celebrations. Von Miller and that defensive front came in with one mission: disrupt everything. From the first snap, it was chaos. chaos in the pocket, pressure off the edge, hits after throws, no rhythm, no breathing room. Newton never looked settled, and then came the play that would define the night. A strip sack, the ball loose, bouncing on the turf. For a split second, maybe less. For years, that one hesitation followed him in every big game conversation. The reality is, Cam Newton was still elite, still dynamic, still one of the most physically gifted quarterbacks the league had seen. But the Super Bowl magnifies everything. Swagger becomes scrutiny, confidence becomes criticism, and on that night, the headlines didn't matter. Execution did. Number 4. Muhammad Ali. Now this one feels almost unfair to include because we're talking about Muhammad Ali, the greatest. And he absolutely earned that nickname. But even legends have moments where confidence crosses the line. In the lead-up to his first fight against Joe Frazier in 1971, billed as the fight of the century, Ali didn't just predict victory. He went after Frazier personally. He mocked him relentlessly, called him names, diminished his style, framed him as one-dimensional, basic, easy work. And this wasn't playful banter. It was constant. Ali had been stripped of his title years earlier for refusing military induction, so in his mind, he was still the undefeated champion. He believed Frazier was just temporarily holding his belt, but Frazier, he took it personally. Inside the ring, this wasn't poetry versus brute force. It was pressure versus pride. Frazier's aggressive, forward-moving style immediately created problems. He didn't get intimidated. He didn't fall for the theatrics. He kept coming, hook after hook, body shot after body shot. And then in the 15th round, that left hook, Ali hit the canvas. The crowd went silent. For the first time in his professional career, Muhammad Ali lost. It wasn't a fluke. It wasn't a robbery. It was decisive, and that's what made it so powerful. Ali later admitted Frazier had been stronger than he expected, tougher, more relentless. The man he dismissed publicly had just handed him his first defeat. Of course, Ali would go on to reclaim his throne. He would build one of the greatest legacies in sports history. His resilience is part of why we still revere him. But that night, it was humbling. Because sometimes, even the greatest trash talker of all time forgets that the opponent across the ring is listening. And Joe Frazier made sure Ali heard him loud and clear. 3. Conor McGregor. If confidence were currency, Conor McGregor would be a billionaire. He built an empire on it. The tailored suits, the sharp one-liners, the psychological warfare. McGregor didn't just fight opponents. He tried to dismantle them mentally long before the cage door closed. And for a while, it worked. But when he faced Khabib Nurmagomedov in 2018, the tone shifted. This wasn't just trash talk. McGregor went after everything. Khabib's team, his family, his background, even his religion. Nothing was off limits. Press conferences turned into chaos. It felt personal, volatile. Khabib, on the other hand, barely reacted, calm, focused, almost eerily composed. Fight night arrived, and suddenly the noise didn't matter. Inside the octagon, Khabib did what he always does: pressure, grappling, control. McGregor couldn't find rhythm, couldn't create space. Every round felt suffocating. The swagger that once felt overwhelming now looked frustrated, and in the 4th round, it ended. Khabib locked in the submission. McGregor tapped. For someone who built his identity on dominance and bravado, that moment was seismic. The man who promised violence was controlled, neutralized, and it didn't end there. After the fight, Khabib leapt over the cage, sparking a wild brawl. The chaos McGregor usually orchestrated flipped. The narrative shifted overnight. Khabib became the dominant champion. McGregor's aura cracked. Losses followed. Injuries followed. The invincibility was gone. That fight wasn't just a defeat. It was the beginning of a new chapter. One where the talk didn't carry the same weight anymore. Because when you raise the stakes with words that loud, the silence after tapping hits even harder. 2. Anthony Joshua. Anthony Joshua looked like the future of heavyweight boxing. Physically imposing, Olympic gold medalist, knockout power, marketable, disciplined. He had everything. And in 2019, when Andy Ruiz Jr. stepped in as a late replacement opponent, the narrative felt simple. Tune-up fight, stay busy, move on. Ruiz didn't look like the stereotypical heavyweight champion. Shorter, softer around the edges, not exactly intimidating at first glance. And whether Joshua admitted it openly or not, There was a sense that this wasn't supposed to be difficult. But boxing doesn't care about aesthetics. From the opening exchanges, Ruiz looked sharp, fast hands, confident, unbothered. Then it happened. Joshua got dropped. The crowd was stunned. Surely that was a fluke. It wasn't. Ruiz kept pressing, combination after combination. Joshua looked shaken, uncertain. The composure that defined him started slipping. By the 7th round, the referee waved it off. Andy Ruiz Jr. was heavyweight champion of the world. Shock doesn't even cover it. Joshua later admitted he had underestimated aspects of the challenge. And that's the danger in boxing. One lapse, one assumption, one moment of complacency can rewrite your career. To his credit, he came back and won the rematch in a more disciplined performance. But something had shifted. The aura of invulnerability? Gone. Because in heavyweight boxing, humility isn't optional, it's survival. And Ruiz delivered a reminder the entire world witnessed in real time. Ronda Rousey. There was a time when Ronda Rousey didn't just feel unbeatable, she felt inevitable. She wasn't just winning fights, she was ending them in seconds. Armbar after armbar, first round finishes, total dominance. She became the face of women's MMA and in many ways forced the entire sport to take female fighters seriously on the biggest stage. For years, the question wasn't if she would win, it was how fast. And that kind of dominance changes you. The confidence grows louder, the aura grows heavier, the interviews get sharper. Rousey began speaking like someone who wasn't just ahead of her division, but miles beyond it. When Holly Holm was announced as her next challenger, the tone felt familiar, assured, certain. Holm was respected, sure, a former boxing world champion. But in MMA, many saw her as just another name on Rousey's highlight reel. Rousey made it clear she was prepared for everything. But what unfolded at UFC 193 shocked the entire sports world. From the opening seconds, something looked off. Holm didn't back up. She moved, angled, controlled distance. Every time Rousey rushed forward, she walked into clean, technical strikes. The striking gap, something critics had quietly mentioned before, suddenly became glaring. Rousey wasn't setting traps. She was chasing. Her hands were wide, her entries predictable. Holm stayed disciplined, calm, precise. And then it happened. Second round. Second, a perfectly timed head kick. Rousey collapsed. Silence. Then, disbelief. The woman who had felt untouchable just minutes earlier was unconscious on the canvas. It wasn't just a loss, it was an exposure. Her striking, once brushed aside because no one could survive long enough to test it, had been audited under the brightest lights possible, and the results were brutal. What made it even harder was what followed. Rousey withdrew, avoided interviews, struggled publicly and privately with the fallout. The invincible champion had to confront something far heavier than a single defeat: identity. For years, dominance had defined her. Now, vulnerability did. She returned later against Amanda Nunes, hoping to rewrite the story. But that fight ended even faster. The aura never fully came back. Rousey remains a pioneer. Her impact on women's combat sports is undeniable. She changed the business, opened doors, broke barriers, but her fall remains one of the most dramatic examples of what happens when hype outpaces evolution. Because in fighting, more than any other sport, belief is powerful, but skill gaps don't lie. And when reality lands flush, it doesn't ask permission. So now I've got to ask you, which one of these moments hit the hardest? Was it the prediction that aged perfectly, the laugh that came back to haunt someone, or the champion who learned, on live television, that confidence alone isn't enough? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoy these deep dives into the moments where sports history flips on its head, make sure you hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next breakdown. Because trust me, there are always more egos, and the game is always listening.